Minister, with the withdrawal of Air Coach from the 8th of April 2024 and the X20 services in 2021 on the Dublin to Galway route, basically, anything that went from Dublin to Galway, those services have been stopped. We currently only have CityLink now that goes every 2 hours, literally between Dublin and Galway, and that services the towns between those two cities. Minister, this commencement was intended for the Minister for Transport. And I am frustrated. I have raised this in 2021. I raised it again last year. I said that there is definitely a need for more services, and what happens? The commercial provider stops. Air Coach stops, April of this year. And I went on to the Connecting Rural Ireland Mobility, because do you know what I did, Minister? When that plan came out, I actually did a campaign. I did a campaign in Galway and Roscommon. I talked about the need for additional public transport services in our rural areas. I did videos, I linked in with community groups in the region. And it is great to see some of our local link services, going from Castlereagh to Mountbellew to Ballinasloe. That's excellent. But yet, we have a local link that goes from Ballinasloe to Loughrea, and there's no connectivity from Loughrea to Galway. We do not have a local link that goes from Ballinasloe to Athlone. And can I ask you, Minister, do you know the hospital, the emergency department and the maternity for the city of Athlone? It's Portiuncula Hospital, Minister. It's Portiuncula University Hospital. That's a level 3 hospital, acute maternity hospital. And you go on to the Connecting Ireland Rural Mobility Plan, and on the very first page, on their lovely slide on their website, it says, connecting medical and educational establishments. Now that's well and good, but Minister, can I ask you, how is that getting done? Now I want you to take this message back, because I have had it. I've had it when it comes to the fact that I call for additional services, that we as a government are supporting additional support into public transport. And yet, Minister, we now have a situation where the commercial provider has removed a service that they were providing. Now that's every 2 hours. I have it here, CityLink, every 2 hours. And yes, we have a train station, and aren't we fortunate? The train station is 2 kilometres from the hospital. So if you potentially are expecting, maybe you're going for maternity checkup, well, you have the joy of making your way to the train station in Athlone, and then you have the additional joy, if you don't meet the local link bus that might bring you to the hospital, of walking those 2 kilometres. Now, I had an email from an ADON, the Assistant Director of Nursing in Portiuncula, who herself expressed a concern around student nurses being able to get to work. These young people are trying to get from maybe Galway, maybe they work in UHG, maybe they're in Merlin Park, and they're trying to get to the hospital in Portiuncula to do their shift. So maybe they make their way into Galway, they get the train from Eyre Square, they make their way out, get into Ballinasloe, and guess what? They get to walk, if they don't get the local link bus, another 2 kilometres. And are they on their feet all day long? I don't know what else to say here, except there is a lack of investment coming into the West. Minister, I was in Raheny Station at 8:45 last Thursday in Dublin city centre. 4 trains passed me by. 4 trains passed me by in less than 3 to 4 minutes. How can we stand over and say that we have equal access to public transport? It is not the case. Minister, when we look at every parameter that needs to be considered here, when we look at everything, when we look at chlor, when we look at areas of deprivation, I can point that out. I can point to communities that have no access, cannot get into town maybe to collect their pension, maybe can't get in to have social activities. We had a motion here last week about loneliness and anxiety and isolation. How are we ensuring that in the west of Ireland, in one of our most deprived areas, in a just transition area that's lost jobs through Shannon Bridge, that somehow the Department of Transport is saying, you know what, we don't think you need those services. We don't think that the communities in the west need those services. Now, I've talked to the local link managers, both in Westmeath, in Dublin, that cover the Roscommon, Westmeath, Longford area. I've talked to the local link managers in Galway. They would like to extend those services. They're willing to consider it, but what do they need? They need funding, they need the nod, and it's in the Rural Connecting Ireland Mobility Plan, it's in there, about having a service between Athlone and Ballinasloe, about having additional services. Thank you.
Senator. Minister.
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to thank Senator Aisling Dolan for raising this important topic. I know how passionate you are advocating for the best interests of both the local communities in Galway and Roscommon, and I am taking this commencement on behalf of Minister Eamon Ryan, and I would like to say from the outset that the Minister for Transport has responsibility for policy and for overall funding in relation to public transport, but neither the Minister nor his officials are involved in the day-to-day operations of public transport services. The statutory responsibility for securing the provision of public transport, passenger transport services nationally rests with the National Transport Authority, the NTA. The NTA works with the public transport operators who deliver the service and who have responsibility for the day-to-day operational matters. That said, I would like to reassure the Senator that Government is strongly committed to providing all citizens with reliable and realistic sustainable mobility options, and public transport plays an important role in the delivery of this goal. To support this objective under Budget 2024, a funding package of €613 million has been secured for PSO and local link services. This includes funding for the continuation of the 20% fare reduction on PSO services, the adult youth card on both PSO and commercial bus services, and the 90-minute fare until the end of 2024. Funding has also been secured to support new and enhanced bus and rail services next year. And I want to turn my attention to the specific issue raised today by Senator Dolan. While the majority of public transport in Ireland is Exchequer funded through the Public Service Obligation or PSO programme, a critical part of the national public transport system is comprised of bus services run on a commercial basis throughout the country. The Galway to Dublin airport service provided by Air Coach falls into the later category. As such, any decision taken in relation to the cessation of this specific route is a commercial decision solely for the operator, in which neither the Department of Transport or the NTA has a role. That said, in circumstances where commercial operators cease running a specific route, the NTA undertakes an assessment to determine whether that the discontinuation of the commercial service, if it is necessary for a replacement PSO route to be introduced to ensure no loss of connectivity to the public. The process includes an assessment of the level of demand for public transport services in the affected area and an evaluation of whether existing PSO services can be reconfigured to meet any shortfall or whether it is necessary to competitively tender for the provision of services. As of April 2024, the NTA has determined that the removal of the route X20 service has had limited impact on the Galway to Dublin intercity journeys, as CityLink route 763 continues to support the route. Additionally, there is currently no public service obligation to introduce new services to replace route 706. As outlined in the NTA's assessment, public transport trips from Galway to Athlone and Athlone to Dublin will continue to serve by rail and bus. Route 763 provides 8 return trips daily, and Irish Rail provides 9 departures on weekdays, 8 on Saturdays and 6 on Sundays in both directions between Galway and Athlone. Athlone is included within the Corridor 23 in the Connective Ireland Plan, which specifies a minimum service frequency of 2 hours on all services between Galway and Dublin. Following the withdrawal of route 706, the remaining service provisions exceeded the minimum service frequency identified by Connecting Ireland, and the NTA will continue to monitor local demand to travel along the corridor to ensure they remain fit for purpose.
Minister.
Just bear in mind, Senator, that Minister Dillon is standing in.
Yes. No. A minister knows very well that he's standing in for Minister Ryan. A minister that comes in here and takes any commencement matter is speaking on behalf of the minister that they represent. I think it's unfortunate, Minister, and I'd like the clock to go back, please. Minister, what you've provided with me here from the NTA, this is supposed to be the Rural Ireland Connecting Ireland Mobility Plan. Well, maybe we should have the NTA in here talking to us about the 4 trains that went past me in Raheny. Maybe they should talk to me about maybe we move the whole population of Ireland into Dublin. Maybe that's the easiest thing to do. Do we move them all from the west of Ireland, Minister? And move them all in, and maybe then it's all sorted. Because according to this, it's okay for people to only have a coach service every 2 hours. Every 2 hours. But yet, if you live in the middle of Dublin city centre, you can have 4 trains pass you by, another 3 or 4 buses probably outside the train station, and yet in the likes of Bannister Athlone, you can't get to the hospital. I didn't even speak about TUS. I didn't speak about the university. I didn't speak about students trying to get maybe to college or to work. Minister, this is not fit for purpose. This plan is coming up for review. This plan has to be reviewed, and government cannot stand over something. There is no balanced regional development here, and it's very clear it isn't. Thank you.
Centre Minister.
Thank you, Senator, and certainly I will convey your frustration, your disappointment, your anger back to Minister Eamon Ryan in relation to this really important issue. And I also want to reassure the Senator that the Department of Transport, the NTA and the operators will work to ensure that the optimised deployment of resources across the public transport network to match ongoing changing passenger demand patterns will be reviewed and looked at. And also I would ask you, Senator, to continue your engagement, and while we look at the levels of service provided by CityLink Route 763 is considered to be sufficient for towns such as Loughrea or Ballinasloe, the NTA have other considerations to assess, and they have deemed it to be insufficient for a town of Athlone's population status as a regional growth centre. So I would say under Connecting Ireland we have seen a large number of regional and local routes are proposed to operate into Athlone, which will serve as a hub for the Midlands of the country. So considerations will need to be given to continue to provide a high quality intercity connectivity to both Galway and Dublin. And I think if we look at this collectively, these measures will not only provide further improved connectivity in the areas, but will certainly provide viable alternatives to private cars and those living in the region. To your point in relation to the route in question, Senator, it is a difficult situation in relation to the commercial viability of the previous route, and I suppose responsibility lies with the actual operators, and I think that does present difficulties for both the Department of Transport, the Minister and the NTA, but I will continue to work with you in regard to this and ensure that your concerns that you've raised here today are brought back to the Minister.
Thank you, Minister.